Thank you, everyone. We're so grateful to have your attendance today, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to speak again with members of the ENLACE project. A little bit about the Climigration Network. We are bringing together community leaders and practitioners to create better models for community-led relocation. We're the only network serving both community leaders and members and practitioners in this space from a variety of professional backgrounds. We're just really excited to get this event started. I am going to hand this over to David Southgate, who will share a little bit more about himself and also introduce our speakers today.
Kristen, do you just want to review the guidance really quickly?
Yes, thank you. So just to let you know, we had originally expected we wouldn't be recording this session, but we heard from the ENLACE members that they actually would really value having the recording. So we are going to be recording today, and that has already begun. We ask that everyone respectfully consider that we all are coming from different backgrounds. We're all bringing different privileges, assumptions, and values to our work and to this conversation. So please recognize that there are other value systems and ways of knowing and being in the world. Be open to a variety and diversity of perspectives. Be mindful of background noise and mute if others are speaking. And please speak clearly and slowly, as we do have simultaneous interpretation today. We ask that when we get into the discussion period that people do participate actively in the discussion. We hope that you'll take space to share your thoughts, but also make space for others to share those thoughts that they may have if you find that you're sharing often. We would love for you to engage in the chat. We would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat so we can hear a little bit more about the folks who are joining us today. And with that, I will hand it over to David Southgate, who is a member of our Ecosystems and People Work Group. He is also, he kind of bridges, he embodies the network in that he is both a practitioner and a community leader, and he's just an amazing person. So David, please do share a little bit about yourself, and please introduce our panelists.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kristen, for the very generous introduction. I appreciate that. Yes, so I'm a resident actually in Puerto Rico, in a neighborhood called Ponce Playa, which floods and has been flooding for many years. And so I'm also a practitioner, also a scholar at Rutgers University, where I'm a distinguished graduate fellow studying community development in their public affairs program. So we began to think about our first rollout of what could we share with other members of the Climigration Network that would be interesting in lines with ecosystem and people. And coming from Puerto Rico, Proyecto ENLACE is probably the most notable and famous and successful that we're aware of in the Caribbean, and actually a real marker of success around the world. So we're just really, really happy to have folks from the community as well as the organization with us today. I'm going to start by introducing Jennifer Rivera de Jesús. She's the housing manager of ENLACE project, has a master's degree in architecture and advanced course certification of the Uniform Relocation Act, and has been in ENLACE since 2015 when she participated in their Vista volunteer program. As the housing manager, Jennifer supervises and manages the acquisition and relocation process required for the comprehensive development plan that ENLACE is executing, including the dredging of the Caño Martín Peña, which will restore an ecosystem in metropolitan San Juan area. This has the support of the housing committee composed of community leaders and a team of coordinators and volunteers. Jennifer also manages the housing development strategies to attend to the needs of the families and ensure citizen participation. So I'm just going to ask Jennifer to come on and go ahead and introduce the guests that are with her and ENLACE today as well. And thank you so much for joining us.
Sí, saludos.
Hello, greetings.
We are grateful for this space that we are having to share our experience. This here is Vicky and Cholo. These are community leaders from Buena Vista, Santurce. Vicky is a part of a displacement committee. She has been in many community meetings, and they went through a process of relocation. Zorimar is also with us. She also suffered from a process of displacement when she was about 16 years old. Right now, she is a housing coordinator as an employee for the project. And so I want to make a parenthesis in terms of the last panel that we had, in terms of what does community planning actually need? What do we mean by that? It's not that just we that present that to them. It's not, we work alongside the citizens. We have various employees that are part of the community, including the executive director. Right now, the executive director is a resident of the community. He was there when G8 was founded. And so it's very important that that participation is real and authentic. And so I'm going to be asking Vicky and Cholo some questions, and also Sorimar can also add from her own perspective. And afterwards, we just want to have a conversation with the rest of the assistants. If you have any questions, you can ask them directly, and to the members of the community also. And so Vicky, can you explain how you arrived to Caño, and you've been here since what moment? I arrived at the Caño 12 years old, and I lived in the community for 50 years. 50 years? Yes, 50 years. And how was the Caño before? And so the people would often bathe in the water. It was fresh water, it was clean, not like now. It was a clean and fresh water. And so we know that right now it's clogged, polluted. That was very tough. When Hurricane Maria impacted us, well, it took down trees, and the part where we lived that suffers from flooding. And the water just overflows and it gets to people's residences, and the water would arrive up to my waist. And so if the houses are all tall, they have to wait until the water recedes so that they can exit. And how did the community move to deal with that situation? Well, it wasn't really quick, because since the community was flooded, we couldn't really act quickly. And then the project, which is us, found tarps for us because we had houses who lost their zinc roofs. We received tarps. We received food, groceries, and then the employees went out of the office of the project, and then they went to the community to help in the cleaning duties. Because as we said, there was trees that came falling down, and so they came to help us. And what was the thing that most worked during that period? Yeah, I think it was the community itself, the community engagement, that they actually went out to work. So one part of my house, Maria just took off the zinc panels off. And out of this zinc panels that were just lying out on the street, the community members came and helped me to kind of repair that part of my house. And so for that situation you got in your house, you started suffering from a health condition, right? Yes, right, because since we had a lot of waste enter the house as well, I still suffer from that particular health condition. It's a type of allergy. Yes, it's the type of allergy. And so when they told me I had to move in very quickly, that was not easy for me. I knew that the streets were flooded. I knew that I couldn't really walk out, go down. I knew my house was in bad conditions, but I was living for 50 years there. It's not easy. I knew a lot of good neighbors. It's a really tough situation. But now where I live, it's very good. Very good. I live better than how I lived before. That I have to admit. And I don't suffer floodings where I live. Yeah, and how was the process of being able to move with the corporation? It was really nice because they tell us to actually look for the house. They don't really force an option onto us. You are the one who looks for the actual residence. When I find the house, then there's a committee that actually comes to inspect the house that you chose, and they examine everything about it to see if the house really meets the requirements. And so it has to be safe, secure, and that you have to live better than how you lived before. But the project treats us very, very well. And what do you think is the main role of that committee? Well, the main one, there's many things. Well, the main thing is that we found out everything about the faults that the house might have. And so if we find any, we list that down so that they can come to inspect what is actually wrong with the house. But it's not something crazy that happens. And you decided to move with the land trust? Why? Well, because it protects us. Yeah, that trust, the fund protects us in any case. Well, yeah, because you can say that I have something there that helps me, that we know in any case. Yeah. A parentheses there. Instead of having a private, ownership of the residents, they enter under the fund. So it's actually, they're under the collective, right? And so through all these years of fighting, struggling, what do you think has worked for you? Well, with what's happening now, can I say it? Well, what I'm thinking about is that I'll probably die and I won't see the dredging. Well, we're not gonna die. We're going to see the dredging of the channel. Yeah.
So, which have been the greatest challenges that you have to face? Can we talk about the political aspect? Well, I think that the biggest challenges have been. It's okay. I know that we've discussed some of these political aspects, and that is something that the corporation tries to maintain its distance, because we know that we depend on government agencies, but I think that we are not part of a political party. We are working for the project. So what would be your recommendation to the communities that are listening to you? Well, my recommendation would be to follow our example, and to keep on fighting. But don't stop. You need to follow this example. So now, if you have any questions, please let us know. If you want to make some direct questions to them.
Thank you so much. That was really powerful. My name is Sarah, and I am helping to moderate the discussion. So we brought in some prepared questions, and so I'm going to ask one of them because you already asked so many great questions to enlighten us on this wonderful project. How has the community land trust model served to build or redistribute, move wealth around the community? Or has it done that?
Denos un momentito para que Zorimar pueda entonces compartir también.
Can you please give us a second?
Okay.
Well, I think that this land trust has been so good. So this is something that we would recommend to other communities because our trust particularly was created with the houses and all the properties already established and built. So I think that what we want with the land trust is to protect the properties and to prevent displacement on behalf of the community. We don't want anyone to speculate or those with hidden interests to take us out of here because we are already settled and we want to enjoy these things, and the trust is in the process of growing. We are still learning, of course, and we need to learn how to manage everything because it could have been just a piece of paper, you know, talking about the rights of surface on territories, but it has been evolving with the citizen participation on all the assemblies that we've held with all the members of the trust, and we are looking for more people to join us. And in the future, we want for the community to receive all the earnings of this trust, and we want for everyone to be able to benefit. So I think that we're currently developing what we call the rental of empty spaces, so that we can have this employment mania, so that then we can keep on moving to other things that are part of the trust. But the trust has keep on growing, and I think that this is going to remain along with the G8 because I think that once we have completed all these projects, it's supposed to disappear, but this trust along with G8 is going to remain with the custody of these properties and to develop all sorts of businesses or this surveillance and monitoring that we are taking care of our members. And also with G8, we have these community leaders that are always fighting and they are always surveilling and looking after everything working the right way or as planned.
Right, that's really inspiring that the community has come to fight for their land and their right to it. That's wonderful. And I'm glad that a few people are asking questions in the chat. So I'm going to ask one of them from Carrie Hewlett. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. If you had neighbors who didn't want to move, how did you talk with them? What did you say? Or what are you saying now to anyone who's, we call it a holdout, who's holding on to wanting to stay, you know, near to the canal?
No sé, pero como que hay algunos que no quieren.
I think that there are people that don't want to move, but you know that in my own personal example, we need to bear in mind that after so many years in living in a place, you hold on to the community. But what I could tell is that everyone knows that they are moving to a better place, they'll be fine, and they know that it's going to be their home. They know that. So, and then it's up to them, they can decide, but they'll end up moving because we are always open to this dialogue, but as Vicky says, they are aware of the fact that they might hold on to the community, but they have been a part of this all the way since the beginning, which I also think it's important because they know that it's for the out of good for the community, that this is the best for the community. And sometimes it's difficult that they can understand, and this is the way that they end up giving up and they move in favor of the community. And another strategy that works is the community that accompanies all the families and try to explain, for example, Vicky that has been through this process, she can share exactly with the families what she has been through, so they trust her. And this is something else that we have. We are open to listening and to keep on working throughout the process. So it might be harder for some people than others, but But we need to give them time. We don't want to press people, because we need to provide them a space, because sometimes if they say that they are going to need more time, then we can give it to them.
Yeah, that's really valuable information and really wonderful that you all, invite community members to be a part of the project. Not just have, practitioners who are the ones who are deciding from, on high, everything that's going to happen. So that's really valuable. David Hampton from Limnotech asks, in Spanish and in English, pilot projects in public space.
Tenemos un momentito.
Okay, go ahead. Do you still need a moment? Maybe I could ask you in Spanish. ¿Existen proyectos de este tipo previstos?
Catalytic pilot projects in public spaces, are there such projects planned?
La comunidad impulsó esto para que pudieran ver el progreso.
I think that we've also seen that these processes are really going to help the families, because we do not want to put pressure on the families. And I think that this is what makes us different. We are not putting pressure, and we do not want to kick you out. So I apologize, we lost the sound. Well, this experience has been that at all times the community can choose their own home, and we want the families to improve. Are you listening? Yes, we can. Well, I was saying that the families are able to choose their own homes, and they are always accompanied by community leaders and members of the project. So oftentimes they want the community leaders to be the one accompanying them. So I guess that throughout this process, we've discovered what is the best for the project. And sometimes we don't see results as quickly as we can, but we don't want to run over people. We don't want them to be treated like they've been mistreated in other projects that don't care about them. They just care about people moving a particular figure or a number of people on a particular year. And I know that this is a process, but we need for all people to be safe.
Absolutely. That was really helpful. Kristen asked, Kristen, do you want to ask your question aloud?
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. Can you hear me? I'm curious. I see that Maria Victoria was a member of the ENLACE Relocation Committee. I'd love to hear more about what that committee does and what motivated her to join and what kind of work she does to support that committee. And it might be that, Jennifer, your computer is muted. Someone from Lingo Call. Oh, yes. Someone, Bernardo?
¿Nos escuchan por acá?
Oh, yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Sí.
¿Y pudieron escuchar la explicación de Zorimar?
And were you able to listen to Zorimar's explanation? No.
No, we didn't hear the answer.
Please give us just a second.
This is a great time for others to post questions in the chat. If you have a question on your mind for the group, please do share in the chat box.
Ahora nos escuchan.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Ok, bueno, pues añadiendo un poquito, no sé si me escucharon ahorita, pero
Well, I guess that you did not listen to what I was saying, but to continue, I think that a dialogue is very important because I think that these are the people that will be the face of this project, and they are going to convey the fact that this project is reliable. We don't want to violate anyone's rights. We don't want to kick them out of their homes. And oftentimes, this project, well, we as members of the project work as mediators with the families so that they can feel more at ease or safer when it comes to the process itself, because we have the committee, because they're going to be your neighbors, we have the people that has lived their whole life on that same place. So I think that the project is going to act differently because on many occasions, maybe in other projects, what they need is for the people just to leave their homes so that they can continue with their project plans. However, we at ENLACE, we are different. What we want with the trust is for people to stay, and we want for people to have a better quality of life. So that is what we look at. We take a look at people. We take a look at the welfare of the people, and we don't want them to leave. And I think that the people are going to be equally important or even more important. So this is why we provide this special treatment to people. And for example, we are not going to tell them you need to leave within 3 months. That is not the way in which we want. We are not going to say, okay, we have this deadline, but we want them to consider this new home as a stable household where they can dream and when they can live and when they can have a dignified way of living. And this is why many times when it comes to metrics, maybe we do not have, I don't know, all families moving out so quickly, but this is why, but the reason is because we want the families that at the end of the day, we want them to be happy and to live a dignified life.
Would you like to add something quickly? And how the community operates? But that starts from the small groups with young people with a potential for leadership that incorporates themselves into our organization. And there's also a wide range of activities that attract people to get involved with the project. And that's how you identify people with a potential for leadership, or that this topic or this societal interest appeals to them. And it also helps them to undertake that technical aspect as well, to lead other aspects of the corporation.
Thank you. That was really inspiring. Vicky, what motivated you to join, and what kind of work do you do to support the committee?
Well, since I'm a leader of Buena Vista Santurce, and here or there, I would have to represent the opportunities for Buena Vista Santurce because I went through that relocation process.
You said earlier that you got to choose which house. So everyone gets to choose a house for themselves in the land trust area. How are there many houses and are they all the same? Or are they different, or were they already built, or were they built for the land trust in particular?
No, bueno, te voy a poner mi ejemplo. Mi ejemplo.
Well, I can give you my example. In my case, I didn't want to really leave where I was, a little bit a retired lifestyle, but yes, I chose my house. And my previous house was made of wood, but now this one is made of cement. Because the best thing of all is that they want you to live better than how you used to live. That's what the project aims to do, that your quality of life actually improves. And I'm going to add one other thing. When you choose the house, so they buy the actual residence and they allow you the opportunity for you to get power and water, potable water for the residents. In that sense, of course, we take into consideration properties that are on the market, that they only require minimal repairs. Or we also have a different strategy, which is building upon the lands that are part of the trust.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Carlos Arenas asks, how many families and individuals are part of the community that would need to be relocated? So like the people who are still there, I think he means, that are still along the canal.
So in terms of the community plan that we have in the corporation, we're talking more about around 1,000 families that are affected. It's not just the dredging and process, it's the surrounding areas and the infrastructure as well. Around 300 families have already been relocated, so there's a long way to go, but at least the ones that are closer to the area that needs to be dredged, we have taken care of them. But it's around 1,000 people.
Thank you. Yes, keep the questions coming, everybody in the all of our participants. This is really helpful and great questions. In addition to the project successes, we would also like to know about what didn't go as planned. What was surprising learnings that were gathered from this project?
Oh, yes, sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
What didn't go as planned within the project, and what did you all learn, and how did you incorporate those learnings? Does anybody have a better way to rephrase that?
Sí, pudiéramos compartir un poco, ¿verdad?
Yes. We can share one of the struggles we had is that when they took the lands that the trust had, and those lands were initially awarded by the law that created the trust, but in a certain moment they were taken away. And so that was one of the moments where things didn't go as planned, but there it was very important to have that community organization and that that struggle and that fight for those rights. And in that sense, they had to do their due diligence and approach the appropriate parties to be able to regain those lands. And so sometimes things in this process don't go out as expected. The community has always has to remain vigilant to make sure that the promises are kept. And there's always going to be, of course, some struggles with the central government, with different entities. And that's why it's important for the leadership to be involved so that they can take the appropriate actions with the media and in terms of community organization.
Thank you. Yes, we learned a little bit about that from Estrella, and that was such a big hurdle to have overcome. So thank you for explaining and for doing all that hard work. Rupu, you have a question. You can speak your question aloud by unmuting.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all the presenters for sharing your experiences. My question is actually following up from Estrella's talk last week, but I think it's relevant today as well. And it's about language and how a lot of community relocation efforts are couched under the language of resilience, and how that term can have very strong connotations and can create divides and widen gaps between kind of government and academics and community activists and leaders. And that is sadly, that's the framing through which funding is available in a lot of contexts, but clearly it needs to change. And my question for you all, maybe even Estrella, if you want to chime in as well, how would you think about changing communication and language so that the term resilience or anything else might be a little bit more authentic to the experiences of people who are going through these processes? Does that make sense? Should I explain more?
So yes, first of all, thank you for returning to the second session, and thank you to all of you who have been participating. I'm going to see if I understood the question well, and I think it has to do with the use of certain terms in these efforts. I think that in terms of ENLACE project, something that has to be novel and historic is how the community has been able to access funds for diverse projects, from the bigger projects like the restoration of the ecosystem, but to other funds to a minor scale, like urban partnership and other grants for specific projects. And so they've been able to do it, recognizing that the main language in Puerto Rico is Spanish, and there's already a barrier there because many of the grant opportunities use English as a language, obviously. And so even if there's many people in the US that can speak Spanish and tribal language as well, and in this occasion, we've been able to access some of those grants and funds using Spanish. And I think key has been here, it's been key to bring certain stakeholders to know well the project, know well the context in the community and the firsthand needs. And I think many of the alliances and many financial accomplishments have been reached because we bring people to the communities. And in the case that that's not possible, we take the community to that work table, to that work group with these people. And that one-on-one contact, firsthand experiences has helped us to overcome many technical challenges that a lot of times are part of the package of these grants and funds. And so I think those experiences have been key, and the visits to many agencies and other entities, whether private, international, or governmental. And so it's been key for them to understand what we're actually trying to achieve here, and our needs. I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think that's the answer I have based on the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quiero añadir algo a una pregunta que habían
I'd like to add someone to a question that was made before that has to do with the amount of families that would have to relocate. We are constantly doing census because the population there is constantly in flux. We have occupants, and there's a lot of immigrants concentrated there, but then they have to move for whatever reason. And there has been a significant impact in the communities for the past 10 years. In the 2020 census, the population within the district was estimated at 26,000 inhabitants. And one of the recent surveys estimates that it's closer to actually 14,000. So we have lost around 12,000 people in 10 years. And so this can affect the amount of families that need to be resettled. And this is one of the things that the housing component of the corporation is working on, to have strategies to evaluate where we are right now, how many families are actually left in the district. And I wanted to underline that the number of cases change according to the context and the community needs. And we have to recognize that there has been a significant loss of population. We have had hurricanes, earthquakes. We have been in a very difficult, dire economical situation. And so this has forced many families to emigrate to other communities, and applies to other communities in Puerto Rico as well.
As a follow-up to that, did that make it hard to decide like how many houses have to be built on the new land trust? Well, the land trust land that's set aside.
Ahí, ¿verdad? Como mencionaba Zorimar, el fideicomiso.
Well, as we were mentioning, the trust has a structure that already exists. So in that sense, it's quite different. What the trust does is to grant the right to a territory or surface to the families that are part of the trust, so that they can somehow recognize that this is part of that family's structure. But we are trying to build new houses as well, but some families do not necessarily decide to stay within the district. They sometimes move to other areas in Puerto Rico. And what's important about this is that even if they go out of the district, they can still pertain to this trust. And that's one of the strategies that we have taken, because we are going to be responsible. If they want to stay, they're going to have some alternatives within the district. But definitely one of the main challenges that we have is with the people that want to cover more land, and that represents a challenge when it comes to the property that we want to give the family. But all in all, at least 50% of the families wanted to stay in the district, but that has changed after the hurricanes, because we've had some strong hurricanes that definitely wanted to leave, but we did not have the infrastructure. We had the same conditions, but for those families that want to stay within the district, we are going to take on that responsibility. So our goals is 400 houses between the ones that we have in new construction, but I think that might be reduced because of what Estrella is saying, because of some things have changed. We have seen changes in the family's structures, and then we need to adapt.
Right, so you have to stay adaptable. That makes a lot of sense. Going to ask a question from Jamal Wilson. Do you have outreach events to bring families together to show them the new houses, to show them that they could be a part of this?
Se ha hecho, por ejemplo, en una de las propiedades
For
que
example, in one of the properties that were built by the project, we had this open house. So for those families that met the requirements, because of course we need to define who's eligible, but then they can go and take a look at the houses. But the families might be looking on their own, and sometimes they might need that support. So we accompany them to take a look at the houses and things like that. And for the families that are in this process, so that they can take a look. So we have different people trying to solve these housing needs, and we need to work together with the family before they make a decision. Sí. Regarding what Jennifer was mentioning, in addition to these types of activities like open houses, we need to recognize that the corporation and the trust already have different models for family houses, and these housing models have been designed through participative processes with the communities. So we have this designer firm, but we work with the corporation and the trust, and we conduct all these types of activities in order to meet with them. So I think that we have these processes with community centers like Vicky mentioned, and this is going to attract so many people, and that they can be useful for this development and in order to promote the interest in this new housing, because they might say, well, I am going to have a house that I design myself along with the community. And we're talking about the type of housing that integrates the different components of resilience and the standards that are applicable to the different place. And we also needed to take into consideration the environmental conditions of Puerto Rico and the climate change realities. The fact that this is a participative design is going to help more people to take a look at these future houses, because some of these models has been mentioned are the types of houses that have been already described and have already been built, and some other are part of the process for the identification and request of funds for its development.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense to make sure that the houses are ready for climate change, are ready for the infrastructure in Puerto Rico and the climate in general in Puerto Rico. Kristen has a question. She says, it sounds like there was a very big emphasis on creating affordable housing in the ENLACE relocation process. Do you think that community members would have moved if there wasn't affordable new housing for the people that were moving?
Sí, el proceso de adquisición y realojo de la corporación.
Well, the process that the corporation follows is the relocation in general. So I think that we are forced to have these dialogue options for all the families, because we cannot start knowing that we have houses available for a group of families. So in that sense, we have the responsibility of have an inventory that we can show the families, and in order for the families to be able to choose, and then we must have alternatives as well, because we do not want for these families to be displaced. So definitely, yes, I think that the families know that we are always paying attention, and we need to make sure that we have affordable housing for them, and that is part of the process. So unless I show them at least 3 houses, I'm not going to ask them to move or make them leave their homes. And this is something that we consider to be a part of the project and the exercises that we have been mentioning.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, I was wondering, do the residents, are they paid or reimbursed for having left their home, and what happens immediately after to the home they left?
We, as Vicky says, we paid for moving costs and maybe for some services, but it would also depend. For example, we are going to get a payment for a supplementary rental for 3 years, and it can be an important amount, I think. So I think that we also pay for the moving expenses, and it all depends on the case, on the particular case, but at least we can say that extra money or something, no, we do not give them extra money, but we must bear in mind that the houses that we are looking are going to be houses that oftentimes are much better and of greater value than their former homes. So we are not going to give them a house that it's just like the ones that they left. So we need to trust on we need to take a look at the different prices. So if the house that they are going to get, for example, it's $20,000, let's say, and the one that they'll have, the new one it's worth $100,000. Well, that difference is paid by the corporation, that difference in price or value, unless we have a family that wants a specific house that is way above what we can offer them, then the family doesn't have to pay any money for this replacement house, or to get better conditions, because the families would be contributing to us with this decision and by moving. So I think that that would be their contribution. They shouldn't have to pay extra. And the corporation is going to deliver the house. But of course, the corporation has invested more in that house, in that new house. So I think that for us, that would be like a compensation for going through all this process.
I see. That's a really great system. Yes, so I'd like to keep opening up the floor to anybody else who wants to ask a question. But in the meantime, so in the restoration process, the restoration of the ecosystem, does it happen house by house as people relocate, or will it all happen at once? There will be dredging and then there will be a restoration of that sort of wetland and forest ecosystem.
Well, in the case of the restoration of the ecosystem, the corporation, as Vicky mentioned, and Zorimar, Jennifer, and even before the federal funds were allocated back in January in order to start with the construction process, they have been acquiring many things, and we have been working 53% on the structure that has been already acquired and I think that we have made important progress, and the local funds that received by the corporation are part of this restoration process, but it's quite complex because it's not like just getting the money and then in September everything will be ready, but we have to go through different stages when we need to go through the different processes in these areas of work. For example, when we start with the dredging and with all the machinery and all the equipment that we need in order to work with all for example, we need to protect bridges and we need to protect the sediment, and we have some water channels that would be dredged, and we need to protect all these bridges because some of them were built once the Caño was already obstructed. So everything, this flood has affected the bridges. So we need to protect all the bases and the foundations of all these bridges. And sometimes we need to have some excavation processes or work. and we need to have like this time buffer before we continue with all these activities. But as for the restoration of the different mangroves, then it's going to be part of that component, and that is something that we will be working on both sides of the Caño, on the northern and south areas, and the idea is to restore approximately 54 acres of this forest as part of the wetlands that we have in El Caño. So I think that we have different components. It is not a project that we can do in a single step, but I think that we need to go stage by stage. And as for the allocation of funds, I think that it is so important because we have already grants for all of this, but then we need to go stage by stage and asking the money for the next stage. And once we start, we can continue and to keep on working in a coordinated manner on the acquisition of everything that we need. But if you want more information about the project, then we can share it. Maybe the feasibility studies and the climate change and additional information that we have and that can be found on our webpage, and which we can share through the network with you.
Thank you so much. This was really informative, an inspiring project that helps people, the environment, and community members. So this is amazing and great to learn about for everyone here. So I'd like to thank Jennifer, Vicky, Zorimar, and Estrella, and everybody who was here. And I'd like to bring this over to Kristen to close us out.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your skill in moderating that discussion. Also, just really grateful to the Ecosystems and People Work Group for lifting up this story. This has been an incredible story to share with our network. There's so much rich depth to the process that we're very excited to learn more about. There will be a third session in this series that the Ecosystems and People Work Group is lifting up. And we'll share more about that soon. You can always check in on our website where you can find out more about how to join a work group if you're interested in getting more engaged in our network. You can also sign up for our newsletter so you won't miss any other opportunities like this one. And it also summarizes all of the latest news and opportunities from all over the United States on this issue. So grateful to have everyone here. So grateful for everyone in the ENLACE project for sharing your story with us today. And we look forward to hearing more about this project. So with that, I will let all of you go and we will be in touch soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
You all have a great day.